They saw the hoodie and decided she didn't belong in first class. The words weren't spoken out loud. Not yet. But they hung in the air anyway, thick and unkind, moving silently from one pair of eyes to another. Terminal 4 at JFK was soaked in rain. Not the soft kind, the kind that hit the glass in hard sheets, blurring runway lights into streaks of gold and white. Inside, everything felt tight, overheated, impatient. The low hum of delayed flights and tired voices. Ava Mitchell stepped through the sliding doors like she had nothing left to prove. 38 years old, 5'6". No makeup. Hair pulled into a loose knot that had started to fall apart somewhere over the Pacific. She wore a slate-gray cashmere hoodie, the kind only a trained eye would recognize. Soft, expensive, invisible. To everyone else, she looked like a woman who didn't belong here. She adjusted the strap of her worn leather weekender bag and paused just inside the terminal. For a second, she didn't move, just breathed, slow, controlled, like she was reminding her body it was still allowed to function. 30 hours without sleep, 48 hours of negotiations in Tokyo that had felt more like war than business. Her private jet was grounded back in New Jersey. Hydraulic sensor failure. A small issue. Annoying. Fixable. But not tonight. Tonight, she was just another passenger. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. A family brushed past her, the father pulling his carry-on with urgency. A businessman in a navy suit bumped her shoulder without looking back. A woman in heels glanced once, then twice, then turned her head slightly, the way people do when they're trying to place you in a category that makes sense to them. Ava didn't react. She had seen that look before. Too many times. She walked toward the priority boarding lane. Red carpet, slightly frayed at the edges. Her eyes caught it immediately, noted it, filed it away without thinking. That carpet was going to be replaced. She stopped at the podium. Behind it stood Brittany Collins. 27. Blonde hair pulled tight into a ponytail. Nails painted neon pink. Gum moving slowly between her teeth like she had all the time in the world. Brittany didn't look up. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with loud, deliberate taps. The kind that said, "I'm busy," even if she wasn't. Ava waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. The line behind her shifted. A man cleared his throat. Someone sighed loudly. Ava finally spoke. Soft. Controlled. "Excuse me." Brittany raised one finger without looking up. A sharp, dismissive gesture. Zone 1 only. Her voice was flat. Automatic. Economy boarding starts in 20 minutes. You can wait over there. She jerked her chin toward the wall without making eye contact. Ava blinked once. Slow. "I am Zone 1. That made Brittany look up. And in that one glance, everything happened. Her eyes scanned Ava. The hoodie. The sneakers. The tired face. No jewelry. No status markers. The judgment landed instantly. Clean. Final. Brittany leaned back slightly, lips curling into something that almost looked like a smile. "This is the first-class lane," she said, her voice now dipped in syrup, Sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. We need to keep it clear for our priority passengers. A man behind Ava shifted closer, trying to see past her. His watch gleamed under the terminal lights. He looked like the kind of man Brittany was used to saying yes to. Ava didn't move. I am a priority passenger. No change in tone, no emotion, just fact. She lifted her phone. The boarding pass lit up the space between them. Clean QR code. Seat 1A. Brittany stared at it, then back at Ava, then back at the screen. The silence stretched. The gum in Brittany's mouth slowed. Serena. She stopped, frowning. Ava Mitchell. She said the name like it didn't belong to the person standing in front of her. That's me. Ava's voice didn't rise, didn't push. It simply existed. Brittany exhaled loudly through her nose, like she'd just been handed a problem she didn't want. And how exactly did you get this ticket? There it was. Not a question, an accusation. The man behind Ava let out a quiet chuckle. Not loud enough to be rude, just enough to be heard. Ava felt it. The shift, the way the space around her tightened. I bought it. Simple. Direct. She reached forward, taking her phone back before Brittany could hold on to it longer than necessary. Is there a problem? Brittany's eyes flicked to her colleague. A younger guy, maybe 22. Nervous. Watching everything. The system's been glitching, Brittany said, loud enough for him to hear. Sometimes it upgrades the wrong people. The words hung there. Wrong people. Ava's grip on her bag tightened slightly. Just for a second. Then relaxed. Scan it. 2 words. Calm. Final. Brittany rolled her eyes, but she did it anyway. The scanner beeped instantly. Bright green. Valid. No error. No mistake. For a brief moment, something like disappointment crossed Brittany's face. She tore the printed slip from the machine and pushed it toward Ava without care. Fine. Then quieter, colder. But once you're on board, don't be surprised if they move you. Ava took the slip. Didn't look at it. I'm sure they won't. She stepped past the podium. As she walked down the jet bridge, the cold air wrapped around her face, sharp and clean. Behind her, Brittany leaned toward her colleague, not bothering to lower her voice enough. Unbelievable. Probably used someone else's miles. Ava heard it. Every word. She didn't stop, didn't turn around. But something shifted inside her. Not anger. Not yet. Calculation. Because Ava Mitchell didn't react impulsively. She observed. She measured. She waited. And right now, she was beginning to understand something important. This wasn't just one rude employee. This was a pattern, a system, a culture that had learned how to smile while it judged and exclude while pretending it was just doing its job. She stepped onto the aircraft, turned left. First class. The cabin glowed in warm light. Cream leather, polished wood, quiet luxury. 8 seats, 8 little kingdoms. And standing at the entrance, waiting, was the next person who was about to make the same mistake. The woman at the entrance didn't smile. She stood perfectly still in the narrow space between the galley and the first row of seats, posture rigid, chin slightly lifted, as if she had been trained to hold authority in her spine. Her name tag read, Linda Parker, 45 years old. Every strand of blonde hair locked into place with enough spray to survive turbulence. Her eyes moved first. Quick, sharp, measuring. They landed on Ava. Paused. Narrowed. Boarding pass. No greeting. No welcome aboard. Just the demand. Ava held out her phone again. The screen glowed between them, casting a pale light across Linda's face. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. The soft cheese drifting through the cabin speakers filled the silence, smooth and indifferent. Linda took the phone without asking. Her fingers were cold, dry. She looked at the screen, then slowly lifted her gaze back to Ava. 1A. It wasn't a question. Ava stepped forward, reaching for her phone. Linda didn't hand it back immediately. Just held it there, suspended, like she was considering something. Are you sure? Ava met her eyes. The ticket says 1A. Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. She glanced past Ava, toward the rest of the boarding passengers, then back again. We usually reserve that seat for our global elite members, she said, her voice lower now, more controlled, but still carrying that same quiet resistance. High-value clients? I'm aware of what first class is, Ava replied. She didn't raise her voice, didn't lean in, but something in her tone shifted, slightly colder, slightly sharper. Linda felt it, just enough to hesitate, but not enough to stop. I just want to make sure there hasn't been a mistake, Linda said, finally handing the phone back. It happens. Ava took it. No, it doesn't. She stepped past her. Linda turned slightly, watching as Ava moved down the aisle. There was something about the way she walked, not rushed, not uncertain, just deliberate, like she knew exactly where she was going and didn't need permission to get there. Linda didn't like that. Ava reached seat 1A, the window seat, the best seat on the plane. She lifted her bag into the overhead compartment with a smooth, practiced motion. No struggle, no hesitation. Then she sat. The leather gave softly under her weight. The cabin seemed to settle around her. For the first time in what felt like days, Ava closed her eyes. Just for a second, just long enough to imagine silence. A glass of champagne. 6 hours of nothing. But peace, like everything else tonight, was temporary. 10 minutes passed. Passengers filled the remaining seats. The low murmur of conversation built slowly, layered with the sounds of luggage clicking into place, seatbelts snapping, fabric shifting. Ava kept her eyes closed. Then she smelled it. Heavy cologne. Sharp. Expensive. Too much. It arrived before the voice did. Excuse me. Deep. Confident. Used to being heard. Ava opened one eye. A man stood in the aisle beside her seat, blocking the light from the overhead panels. Tall, broad shoulders, navy pinstripe suit cut to perfection. A gold watch gleamed at his wrist, oversized, unapologetic. His boarding pass was clenched between 2 fingers like evidence. You're in my seat, He didn't ask. He stated. Ava opened both eyes now. Slowly. Took him in without rushing. The tension in his jaw, the slight flare of his nostrils, the expectation that this would be resolved quickly in his favor. I don't think so, she said. Calm. Even. I'm in 1A. The man let out a short laugh. Not amused. Dismissive. I'm Charles Whitmore III, he said, as if that explained everything. I sit in 1A every week. There's been a mistake. Ava studied him for half a second longer than necessary. Then she nodded once. I agree. A flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. You're mistaken. The satisfaction vanished. Color rose in his cheeks, quick and uneven. He turned sharply, snapping his fingers into the open air. Actually, snapping them. Linda. No, please. No hesitation. Linda appeared almost instantly, like she had been waiting for the call. Her posture shifted the moment she saw him. Shoulders softer, smile warmer. Real this time. Mr. Whitmore, she said, placing a hand lightly on his arm. It's so good to see you again. The contrast was immediate. Obvious. Ava watched it happen. Filed it away. There's a problem, Charles said, pointing directly at Ava without looking at her. She's in my seat. Linda's gaze moved to Ava. And just like that, the warmth disappeared, replaced by something colder, familiar. Ma'am, she said, voice tightening, I need to see your boarding pass again. Ava didn't move. You already saw it. I need to verify it. The gate agent verified it, Ava replied. I'm in the correct seat. Charles let out a sharp exhale, like a bark. Come on, he said. We both know what's going on here. He looked Ava up and down now, openly. Probably some last-minute upgrade, he added, or a non-rev employee trying their luck. The woman across the aisle shifted uncomfortably. A man 2 rows back lowered his newspaper, watching. Phones were starting to appear. Linda straightened slightly. Mr. Whitmore is a Diamond Premier member, she said, projecting her voice just enough for others to hear. He flies with us regularly. If there's a conflict, priority is given to our status passengers. Ava leaned back in her seat, crossed her legs. That's not how contracts of carriage work, she said. The words landed heavier than her tone suggested. I have a paid first-class ticket. I'm seated. I'm not moving. Charles stared at her like she had just insulted him. Paid with what? He shot back. A lucky break? He reached into his pocket, pulling out a crisp bill, waving it slightly. I'll give you $100 for the inconvenience, he said. Go sit in economy. A few passengers shifted. Someone coughed. The tension thickened. Linda stepped forward, closer now, invading Ava's space just enough to assert control. Ma'am, she said, lower, firmer. I'm going to need you to gather your belongings and step into the galley so we can resolve this. I'm not disturbing anything, Ava replied. Her voice changed. Just a fraction. Colder. He is. Charles scoffed loudly. Linda's jaw tightened. She pulled out her tablet, tapping quickly, aggressively. The glow reflected in her eyes as she scrolled. She paused. For a brief moment, Confusion flickered across her face, then disappeared. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, slower now. "It appears you are assigned to seat 1B." Silence. Charles didn't move, didn't blink. Then slowly, he turned his head toward the seat across the aisle. Identical. Same leather. Same space. Not good enough. "I don't sit in 1B, he said flatly. "The light hits my screen." He turned back to Ava. "She's clearly not supposed to be here," he added. "Look at her." There it was again. "Look at her." Linda hesitated. Just for a second. Then she made her decision. "Ma'am," she said, voice hardening, "I am instructing you to switch seats." Ava didn't respond immediately. She just looked at her. Really looked this time. And something in that look made Linda's stomach tighten in a way she couldn't explain. "No," Ava said. One word. Clear. Final. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Charles stepped forward, grabbing the armrest of Ava's seat. "Listen." "Don't touch the seat," Ava cut in. Her voice snapped now, sharp as glass. "And don't touch me." For the first time, Charles hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then anger flooded back in. "Linda," he snapped, "call the captain." He straightened his jacket, smoothing it down like he was resetting control. "I want her off this plane." Linda nodded immediately. "You've done it now," she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for Ava to hear. As she turned toward the cockpit, Ava reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She didn't call anyone. Not yet. Her thumb hovered over the screen for a fraction of a second, then moved with quiet precision. The app opened instantly. Clean interface. No logos, no branding. Just a secure portal that most people in this cabin didn't even know existed. Asset registry. Fleet management. Ownership control. Ava's eyes moved quickly, scanning. Tail number. Model. Lease structure. Everything she needed was already there. Always had been. She tapped once. Biometric request. Her thumb pressed against the glass. Access granted. The shift was invisible to everyone else. But in that moment, Ava Mitchell stopped being a passenger. She became the owner. The cockpit door opened with a soft mechanical click. Captain David Reynolds stepped out. 50 years old, broad shoulders, silver hair cut close at the sides, 4 gold stripes on his sleeve catching the cabin light. He carried authority the way some men carried weapons, visible, deliberate, meant to control. His eyes went straight to Charles. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, voice warm, familiar. "What seems to be the problem?" Charles didn't hesitate. "This woman refuses to move from my seat," he said, smoothing his tie. "And she's been aggressive. A lie. Clean. Simple. Delivered without hesitation." Reynolds nodded slowly, like he had already decided what to believe before hearing anything else. His gaze shifted to Ava for the first time. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, just looked down at her. "Ma'am," he said, tone clipped. "Is that true?" Ava didn't stand, didn't adjust her posture. She stayed exactly where she was, looking up at him without intimidation. "No," she said. It's categorically false. Her voice was steady, controlled. I'm in my assigned seat. He is not. Reynolds exhaled through his nose, already impatient. Sir, Ava added, you might want to check your manifest before making a decision. Charles laughed under his breath. You're wasting everyone's time, he said. Just remove her. Reynolds glanced toward Linda. She gave a small nod, enough to confirm his bias. That was all it took. He made his decision. Ma'am, he said, voice firm now, projecting just enough for the rest of the cabin to hear, you are causing a disturbance. I have the authority to remove any passenger who interferes with the order of this flight. A few heads turned. Phones lifted slightly higher. I'm giving you one opportunity, he continued. You can move to economy, or you can exit the aircraft. The words settled into the cabin like a verdict. Ava held his gaze. Your aircraft? She asked quietly. Reynolds frowned. Yes, he said. My aircraft. Ava tilted her head slightly. Then you should know who signed the lease on it. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. I don't have time for riddles, he snapped. Linda, call the gate. We're deplaning her. Linda moved immediately, already reaching for the interphone. You'll be lucky if this doesn't result in a ban, she muttered. The cabin air felt heavier now, tighter, like something was building under the surface. Ava inhaled slowly. Then she stood, not abruptly, not dramatically, just rose. But something about it shifted the room. She wasn't tall. She didn't need to be. Understood, she said, picking up her bag. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I'll leave. A ripple moved through the cabin. A few passengers leaned back slightly, as if the tension had just released. Charles smirked. There it was. Victory. Good choice, he said. Enjoy the back of the plane. Ava looked at him. Really looked. Not angry. Not emotional. Just certain. If I leave, she said, her voice dropping just enough to cut through the noise, this plane doesn't take off. Silence. Not complete, but enough. Reynolds let out a short laugh, dismissive. Is that a threat? No, Ava said. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. It's a guarantee. She stepped into the aisle, walked past Charles. He didn't move, didn't step aside fully, just enough to let her pass, his shoulder brushing slightly against hers. Deliberate. Bye, sweetheart, he said under his breath. Ava didn't respond. She walked past Linda, past the galley, past the line where first class ended and the rest of the aircraft began. Every step measured, every eye following, phones tracking her movement. She didn't look at any of them. The cabin door opened. The jet bridge air hit her again. Cold. Sharp. Different from before. Cleaner. Behind her, the door closed. Sealed. Inside, the mood shifted almost instantly. Charles exhaled, loosening his tie, reclaiming the space like it had always been his. Finally, he said, settling into seat 1A. Some peace. Linda smiled again. That same polished, practiced expression. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Whitmore, she said. We've flagged her profile. Good, Charles replied. People like that shouldn't be up here. He reached for the champagne flute waiting at his seat, swirled it, relaxed, like nothing had happened, like he had just corrected a minor inconvenience in his day. In the cockpit, Reynolds adjusted his headset. Ground, Skyline 9002, ready to taxi. His voice was steady, confident, routine. Outside, Ava stopped halfway down the jet bridge. She didn't rush, didn't panic. She simply turned slightly, looking through the narrow window toward the aircraft. The massive body of the Boeing 777 sat under the rain, lights glowing softly through the storm. Powerful, controlled, waiting. She reached into her pocket again, pulled out her phone. This time, she called. The line connected on the first ring. "David," she said. No greeting. No introduction. Just the name. On the other end, a chair scraped against hardwood. A voice shifted from casual to alert instantly. "Ava." "David Grant, Chief Executive Officer. Mid-50s, sharp mind." "Careful, man. I thought you were in the air." "I'm not," she said. Her tone was flat now, not tired, not emotional, just precise. "I've just been removed from Flight 9002. Silence. Then a breath. "Removed?" he repeated. "What happened? Mechanical issue?" No. Ava's eyes didn't leave the aircraft. The issue was me. David didn't speak, didn't interrupt. He knew that tone. He had only heard it once before, when she acquired his company. "My captain," Ava continued, "a man named Reynolds, and your lead flight attendant, Linda Parker, decided I didn't look like I belonged in first class." The rain intensified, hitting the glass in sharp bursts. "They gave my seat to a man named Charles Whitmore III, she said. "When I refused to move, I was labeled disruptive and removed." Another silence. Longer this time. He understood now. Fully. "Are they pushing back?" Ava asked. David turned, looked out his own window miles away. "Probably within minutes," he said. Ava nodded once. "Good." Her thumb moved again. One tap, then another. "Then you should call operations," she said. Her voice dropped. Lower. Colder. "Because I'm grounding that aircraft." David Grant didn't respond right away. For a moment, all Ava could hear was the faint clink of glass on the other end of the line, the distant murmur of voices, people laughing, unaware that something had just shifted in a way that would ripple far beyond a single flight. "Ava," he said finally, "lower now. Careful. That plane is full." Ava didn't blink. "I'm aware." "They're already pushing back," he added, tension creeping into his voice. "We can fix this when you land. I'll have them." "No." The word cut clean, not loud, not emotional. Final. "You're not listening, David." Her reflection stared back at her in the jet bridge window. Tired eyes, pale skin. A woman who looked like she had nothing left to give. But her voice held everything. "That aircraft," she said, "is operating under a lease agreement signed by Cross Aviation Holdings." David exhaled slowly. "I know. and Cross Aviation Holdings, she continued, is wholly owned by me. Silence. Thicker this time. He knew where this was going. Ava, if we ground that plane now, it's already grounded. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. Behind her, through the rain-streaked glass, the aircraft had begun to move. Slow. Controlled. The tug pulling it back from the gate. Ava watched it. Then she tapped her screen. One command. Owner override. Sent. Call air traffic control, she said. Tell them the owner has revoked operational clearance. Ava. You have 60 seconds, she continued, cutting him off, before I escalate this publicly. The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. David closed his eyes for half a second. He understood leverage. And right now, she had all of it. I'll make the call, he said. The line went dead. Ava lowered the phone. Didn't move. Didn't breathe any differently. She just stood there, watching. The aircraft rolled backward, rain gliding across its surface in long silver streaks, lights blinking, engines humming low. Patient. Inside, Charles Whitmore leaned back into seat 1A, stretching his legs slightly, reclaiming the space like a king returning to his throne. About time, he muttered, lifting his champagne flute. Across the aisle, a woman in her 60s adjusted her glasses, pretending to read but not turning a single page. Her eyes kept drifting back toward him. Linda moved through the aisle with renewed energy, her posture lighter now that the problem had been removed. Everything is taken care of, Mr. Whitmore, she said, offering a tray of warm nuts. You handled it well? Charles replied, taking one without looking at her. Some people just need to be reminded where they belong. Linda smiled. Yes, sir. Up front, Captain Reynolds adjusted his headset. Ground, Skyline 9002, ready for taxi. There was a pause. Not unusual. Then the reply came, Skyline 9002, hold position. Reynolds frowned slightly. Ground? Say again. Skyline 9002, hold position. Do not proceed. The tone was different. Not routine. Not relaxed. Reynolds glanced at his first officer, a younger man named Eric Dawson. Late 20s. Sharp. Alert. His hands tightened slightly on the controls. That's not standard, Eric said quietly. Reynolds keyed the mic again. Ground. We are clear of the ramp. Requesting taxi clearance. Static. Then a new voice. Not the usual controller. Skyline 9002, this is Tower Supervisor. Stop your aircraft immediately. Reynolds sat up straighter. What's the issue? He asked, irritation slipping in. There was a pause. Then, we have received a corporate directive. Code Red. Owner dispute. You are ordered to shut down engines and return to gate. The words landed like a weight. Reynolds blinked. Owner dispute? He repeated. That doesn't make sense. Skyline owns. Captain, the voice cut in, sharper now. This directive is coming from the highest level. Do not proceed. Eric looked at him. Something had shifted. You could feel it. Reynolds' grip tightened on the controls. Kill the engines, the controller said. Now. A long second passed. Then Reynolds reached forward, flipped the switches. The engines began to wind down. The deep hum faded into a hollow whine. The aircraft slowed. Stopped. Right there on the tarmac. Inside the cabin, the change was immediate. Passengers looked up, brows furrowed, phones lowered. "What's going on?" someone whispered. Charles sat up, annoyed, a drop of champagne slipping onto his cuff. "Why are we stopping?" Linda glanced toward the cockpit, confusion flickering across her face. "I'm sure it's just traffic," she said quickly. JFK can be unpredictable. But her voice lacked conviction. The intercom clicked. Reynolds's voice filled the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." Gone was the smooth confidence. Something else had replaced it. "We've been instructed to return to the gate due to an administrative issue. We apologize for the inconvenience." A ripple moved through the cabin. "Administrative issue?" Charles snapped. "Are you kidding me?" The aircraft began to turn. Slow, deliberate, back toward the gate. Linda moved quickly now, trying to maintain control. "I'll check with the cockpit," she said, already stepping away. Her heels clicked faster than before. In the cockpit, Reynolds pulled off his headset. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Eric didn't answer right away. He was looking at the system display, at the override code that had just come through. His throat tightened slightly. "Captain," he said slowly, "this isn't coming from dispatch." Reynolds turned. "Then where?" Eric pointed at the screen. "Ownership channel." The words hung there. Reynolds stared at it. Didn't understand. Not yet. Back in the terminal, Ava hadn't moved. The young gate agent, the one Brittany had been talking to earlier, stood a few feet away, watching her. Really watching her now. Something about the situation had clicked in his head. "You did that?" he asked quietly. Ava didn't look at him. The aircraft was turning. "Coming back." "Yes," she said. Just one word. The agent swallowed. His posture shifted. Subtle, but real. Respect replacing uncertainty. Below them, on the tarmac, 2 black SUVs pulled up fast, tires cutting through shallow water. Doors opening before the vehicles fully stopped. Inside the terminal, a man in a wrinkled suit came running down the corridor, tie loose, face pale. Jason Brooks, 41. Station manager. He spotted Ava instantly, checked the photo on his phone, then back at her. Recognition hit him like a physical force. He slowed, just for a second, then hurried forward. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, slightly out of breath. "I'm Jason Brooks, station manager." Ava turned to him now. "Finally. Is the aircraft secured?" she asked. No greeting, no small talk. Jason nodded quickly. "They're docking now." "Good." Her voice remained calm, controlled, but something underneath it had hardened. "I'm going back on board." Jason hesitated, only for a fraction of a second. "Of course," he said. "I'll escort you." Ava adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "And bring security." Jason nodded again. "Do you want us to detain the passenger?" Ava's eyes shifted briefly toward the aircraft, then back. "Not yet," she said. Her voice dropped. colder now. I want him to understand what's happening. The jet bridge began to extend again, connecting back to the aircraft with a heavy mechanical lock. Inside, the cabin had gone quiet. Not peaceful. Tense. Waiting. The door opened, and everything was about to change. The cabin door opened with a sharp mechanical hiss. Every head turned, not slowly, not casually, instinctively. Linda straightened immediately, smoothing her uniform, forcing her posture back into place. Her smile returned, but it came too fast this time, stretched tight across her face like something rehearsed. She expected a gate agent, maybe a mechanic, someone with paperwork, someone she could control. Instead, Ava Mitchell stepped onto the aircraft. Same hoodie, same sneakers, same quiet presence. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her walked Jason Brooks, his face pale, his steps careful, measured. And behind him, a uniformed airport police officer, broad shoulders filling the narrow entrance, eyes scanning everything. The air changed. You could feel it, like pressure dropping before a storm. Linda's smile faltered. "You," she started, confusion breaking through. "What are you doing back here?" "Linda." Jason's voice cut across the cabin. Sharp, hard, unfamiliar. Linda froze. She had never heard him speak like that. I said, "Be quiet." The words landed heavier than they should have. Linda's mouth closed. For the first time since boarding began, she had nothing to say. Jason stepped aside. Not in command, in deference. "Miss Mitchell," he said, his voice now controlled, respectful. "The floor is yours." Ava stepped forward. Slow, deliberate. The sound of her sneakers against the carpet was soft, but every person in that cabin heard it. She moved to the center of first class. 8 seats, 8 people, all watching, phones raised, eyes win a wall. Breath held. Charles Whitmore sat frozen in seat 1A. A shrimp halfway to his mouth. He didn't eat it, didn't move. He just stared. Ava let the silence stretch. 1 second, 2, 3. Then, "Good evening," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried, clear, controlled. "Apologies for the delay." No one responded. No one dared. "My name is Ava Mitchell." A pause. Then, "There seems to be some confusion about who belongs where on this aircraft." The words were simple, but they landed like weight. Captain Reynolds pushed through the cockpit door. "What is going on?" he demanded, irritation already rising. "Why is the door open? Who?" He stopped, mid-sentence. His eyes moved from Jason to the officer, then finally to Ava. Recognition didn't hit immediately, but something else did. Authority. "Ma'am," he said, recovering slightly, "you are not authorized to be back on this aircraft." Ava turned toward him. Not quickly, not aggressively. Just enough. "Captain Reynolds," she said. She didn't ask for his name. She knew it. "Do you have your flight log with you?" He blinked. "What?" "Your log," she repeated. The document you sign before every departure. The one that confirms the aircraft is airworthy. Reynolds hesitated. Yes, he said slowly. But I don't see how that... Who is listed as the lessor of this aircraft? The question cut through him. Clean. Precise. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then, Cross Aviation Holdings, he said. Ava nodded once. And who owns Cross Aviation Holdings? The silence that followed was different, heavier. Reynolds' eyes shifted. Something moved behind them now. Memory. Paperwork. Signatures. A name. He looked at her again. Really looked this time. Not the hoodie, not the sneakers. Her. His face changed. Fast. The color drained. You, he said, barely above a whisper. Ava held his gaze. Yes, one word, no emphasis, no need. I own the aircraft, Captain. The cabin didn't breathe. Not one person moved. I own the fuel, she continued. I own the seats. Her voice sharpened. And until approximately 10 minutes ago, I owned the contract that employed you. A sound moved through the cabin. Not loud, but undeniable. Shock. The woman across the aisle covered her mouth. The man in the second row leaned forward, eyes wide, phones lifted higher, recording everything. Charles Whitmore stood up. Abrupt. Defensive. So what? He snapped. Too loud. Too fast. The arrogance was still there. But something underneath it cracked. So you bought a plane, he continued. That doesn't mean you can throw people off flights. I paid for this seat. Ava turned to him. Fully now. Focused. You paid $3,000 for that seat, she said. Accurate. Exact. A fair price. She took one step closer. You believed that gave you the right to decide who belongs here. Charles swallowed. Just slightly. You thought, she continued, that because I didn't look like you expected, I had no power. Her voice dropped. Lower. Colder. You thought you could snap your fingers. She glanced briefly at his hand. And I would disappear. Charles tried to speak. No. She cut him off. Sharp. Final. You didn't want a seat. Another step. You wanted control, silence, thick, heavy. You wanted to put me in my place. She stopped in front of him now, close enough that he couldn't avoid her presence. Well, a pause. Then, congratulations. Her tone didn't rise, didn't need to. You've just helped me find mine. She turned slightly. Jason? He stepped forward immediately. Yes, ma'am. What is the current status of Mr. Whitmore's frequent flyer account? Jason's hands trembled slightly as he pulled up the information. He is a Diamond Premier member, he said. Not anymore. 2 words. Cold. Absolute. Jason froze. Terminate it, Ava continued. Effective immediately. Lifetime ban. Skyline Airways and all partner carriers. Charles's face went red. You can't do that, he shouted. Do you know who I am? Ava looked at him. Calm, unmoved. I know exactly who you are. A beat. Officer. The police officer stepped forward. Solid, unavoidable. "Sir," he said, placing a firm hand on Charles's arm, "you need to collect your belongings and exit the aircraft." Charles jerked his arm back. "I'm not going anywhere." The officer tightened his grip. "Not aggressive, but final." "You are," he said, "or you'll be removed." The power had shifted completely. Charles looked around, at Linda, at Reynolds, at the passengers. No one moved to help him. No one spoke. For the first time, he was alone. Ava turned away, already done with him. "Remove him," she said. The officer didn't hesitate. Charles Whitmore III was escorted down the aisle. Not with dignity, not with control. As he passed through economy, heads turned. People whispered. Someone laughed. Then, applause. Soft at first, then louder. Ava didn't watch. She didn't need to. Her focus shifted. Back. To the people who had made the first decision. Linda and Captain Reynolds. They stood side by side now, stripped of authority, exposed. Ava's eyes settled on them, and her voice dropped into something far more dangerous. Now. The word didn't rise. It didn't echo. It settled, heavy, final, like something being placed exactly where it belonged. Linda felt it first, not in her ears, in her chest. A tightening, a slow, creeping pressure that made it harder to breathe. Captain Reynolds straightened instinctively, as if posture alone could restore what had already been stripped away. His hands moved to clasp behind his back, a reflex built over decades. Authority, control, command. None of it held. Ava looked at him without blinking. "Captain Reynolds," she said, her voice low, precise. "You made a decision." He swallowed. "I was maintaining order on the aircraft," he replied, the words coming out slower than he intended. "Based on the information presented." "You didn't verify it." She didn't interrupt loudly. She corrected. "Clean, surgical." Reynolds's jaw tightened. "I relied on my crew. You relied on your assumptions." A pause. The cabin felt smaller now, closer. Every passenger leaning in without moving. Ava took a step toward him. "You saw a man in a tailored suit," she said, "and a woman in a hoodie." Her eyes flicked once toward Linda. "You made a judgment." Reynolds held her gaze for a second longer than he should have, then looked away. "I followed procedure." "No," Ava said. Her voice sharpened just enough to cut. "You followed comfort. Silence. Absolute. You chose the outcome that required the least resistance," she continued. "The least friction. The least risk to you." Reynolds's throat moved, a swallow. Ava didn't stop. Because removing him, she tilted her head slightly toward the aisle where Charles had been dragged moments earlier, would have created a complaint. Another step closer. Removing me felt easier. The words landed harder than anything she had said so far. Not louder. Truer. Linda shifted her weight. Just slightly. But Ava saw it, turned. Linda Parker. Her name sounded different coming from Ava's mouth. Not familiar. Measured. Linda tried to straighten again. "Yes, ma'am," she said, her voice thin now, stretched tight. Ava studied her. The perfect hair. The uniform. The practiced smile that had disappeared somewhere along the last 5 minutes. "You looked at me," Ava said slowly, "and decided I wasn't worth the inconvenience." Linda shook her head quickly. "No, that's not. You didn't check my ticket. You didn't check the manifest." Linda's mouth opened. Closed. "You didn't even try," Ava said, each sentence shorter, sharper. Linda's composure cracked. "I was trying to support a loyal customer," she said, the words rushing now, defensive, uneven. "Mr. Whitmore flies with us every week. He has expectations. And I don't?" The question cut through her. Linda froze. Ava stepped closer. Not aggressively. But enough. "I paid for that seat," Ava said. "The same as him. The same as anyone else." Her voice dropped. Lower. "Or did you decide my money didn't count?" Linda's eyes filled. Not with emotion. With pressure. "I didn't mean—" "That's the problem." Ava didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. "You didn't think." The cabin held its breath. "You reacted," Ava continued, "based on appearance, based on bias, based on a system that rewards you for making those choices quickly and quietly." Linda's shoulders dropped. Just a fraction. Enough to show. Ava turned slightly, addressing the space around them now. Not just the two in front of her. "The issue here isn't one rude interaction," she said. "It's a pattern." Her gaze moved across the cabin. From seat to seat. Face to face. "A culture," she added. The word hung there. Heavy. "Where respect is conditional," she continued. "Where service depends on how someone looks, not who they are." A man in the second row shifted uncomfortably. The older woman across the aisle lowered her eyes. Phones kept recording. Ava turned back. "To Reynolds. You've been with this airline how long?" He hesitated. 20 years. Ava nodded once. 20 years, she repeated. "And you still believe authority means choosing the easiest target?" Reynolds's face flushed. "I made a mistake," he said. The words were quiet, but they came. Ava watched him. Didn't respond immediately. Just let them sit there. "I'm sorry," he added. There it was. The apology. Late. Measured. Incomplete. Ava tilted her head slightly. "Are you sorry?" she asked. "Because you were wrong." A pause. "Or because I turned out to be someone you couldn't afford to be wrong about?" The question landed like a weight dropped from height. Reynolds didn't answer. He couldn't. Because he knew. And so did everyone else. Ava let the silence stretch. Then, "That distinction matters." Her voice softened. "Not with kindness, with clarity." "If I had been exactly who you thought I was," she continued, "none of this would have changed." Linda's breathing grew shallow. Reynolds looked down. Ava stepped back, creating space again. Control. Jason, he stepped forward instantly. Yes, ma'am. Relieve them of duty. The words came without hesitation. No build-up, no drama. Just decision. Jason blinked. Immediately, he asked. Ava looked at him. Immediately. Linda's face collapsed. No. Please, she started, stepping forward, her voice breaking now. I've worked here for 15 years. I didn't know. That's the point, Ava said. Not cruel, not loud, just final. You didn't know. A beat, and you didn't care to. Linda's hands trembled. I was doing my job, she whispered. Ava shook her head once. You were protecting a hierarchy that shouldn't exist. Reynolds stepped forward now. Desperate. Ms. Mitchell, he said, voice tight, controlled but fraying. I have a pension, a record. 20 years of service. You can't just... You threatened to have me arrested, Ava said. Flat, direct. Reynolds stopped. You were willing to remove a paying passenger, she continued, based on nothing but assumption. A step closer. You put your authority above your responsibility. The words hit harder than any accusation, because they were true. Ava held his gaze. I don't employ that. Silence. Jason shifted. He didn't need further instruction. Captain Reynolds, he said quietly, Ms. Mitchell is relieving you of duty, effective immediately. Reynolds didn't move. For a second. 2. Then the reality settled. His shoulders dropped, just slightly. Linda covered her mouth, a quiet sob breaking through. Please, she whispered. I'm sorry. Ava turned away. Done. Save it, she said. Not harsh. Not emotional. Empty. For someone who still believes it. Jason gestured toward the door. The officer stepped forward. Not aggressive, just present. Reynolds removed his cap slowly, held it for a moment, then lowered it. Linda wiped at her face, smearing mascara she hadn't realized had started to run. They walked. Down the aisle. Past the passengers they had once controlled. Past the eyes that now watched them differently. No authority. No status. Just 2 people. Leaving. The walk was longer than it should have been, because every step carried weight. Every glance reminded them what they had lost and why. The door closed behind them. The cabin fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't tension. It was something else. Something heavier. Ava stood in the center of it, unmoved, unshaken, in control. And she wasn't finished yet. No one spoke. Not because they didn't have anything to say. Because they didn't know if they were allowed to. Ava stood still for a moment longer, letting the silence settle into something solid, something real. The kind of silence that forces people to sit with what just happened instead of escaping it. Then she moved. Not back to her seat. Not yet. She turned slightly, her gaze sweeping across the cabin again. 8 passengers, different faces, different lives. But in the last 30 minutes, every single one of them had watched something unfold and chosen where to stand. Some had looked away. Some had whispered. Some had recorded. Very few had spoken. Ava saw all of it. She remembered all of it. But she didn't call anyone out. She didn't need to. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice returning to something calmer now, but no less controlled. "I appreciate your patience." A man in the second row shifted in his seat, clearing his throat like he might speak. He didn't. Ava continued. "I'm aware that what just happened was disruptive." A faint, almost ironic edge touched the word. "Your time matters," she said. "You paid for comfort, for reliability, for professionalism." Her eyes moved briefly to the empty space where Reynolds and Linda had stood. "You didn't get at that. No one disagreed. No one could." Ava took a breath. Small, measured. "I won't ask you to ignore what you saw," she continued. "And I won't pretend it didn't happen." A pause. "But I will fix it." The words didn't come with emotion. They came with certainty. Jason shifted beside her, already anticipating what was coming. "Jason," she said. "Yes, ma'am. How long to get a reserve crew?" He hesitated, not because he didn't know, because he knew she wouldn't like the answer. "At least 2 hours," he said. "Possibly 3. A ripple moved through the cabin. Not loud, but immediate. 2 hours. 3. Connections missed. Plans disrupted. Fatigue extended. Ava saw it. Every flicker of frustration, every tightening jaw, every sworn calculation. She nodded once, understood. No apology, just acknowledgement. She turned slightly, looking past first class, down the narrow aisle into the rest of the aircraft. Rows and rows of passengers, hundreds of people. Most of them unaware of the full story, just feeling the delay, the inconvenience, the ripple effect of a moment they never saw. Ava's eyes lingered there, longer this time. Then she turned back. "Jason." "Yes, ma'am. Is the executive crew available?" He blinked. "The corporate crew?" he asked. She nodded. "They're on standby at JFK, he said, but they're assigned to Mr. Grant's aircraft. Call them." Jason didn't question it. He just nodded. "Yes, ma'am. And Jason." He paused. "Yes?" "Open the bar." A few passengers looked up. "Excuse me." "Champagne," Ava said, already turning back toward her seat. "For the entire aircraft." A beat. Economy included. The words took a second to land. Then, a shift. Subtle, but real. Jason stared at her for half a second longer than necessary, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Ava stepped back toward seat 1A. The seat she had been told she didn't belong in. She paused beside it, looked at it. Then, instead of sitting down immediately, she reached out and adjusted the headrest slightly. Small movement. Precise. Like she was reclaiming something that had never actually been taken, just questioned. Then she sat. The leather responded the same way it had before. Soft. Familiar. This time, no one questioned it. Across the aisle, the older woman who had been quietly observing everything leaned forward slightly. Her voice was soft. Careful. My dear. Ava turned her head. The woman smiled gently. May I ask you something? Ava studied her for a moment, then nodded. Of course. The woman adjusted her glasses. You really own all of this? She gestured lightly around the cabin. The aircraft, the idea of it. Ava followed her gaze, then looked back. Yes. The answer was simple. No performance, no pride, just fact. The woman let out a small breath, then chuckled. Low. Warm. Well, she said, leaning back into her seat. That was the most satisfying thing I've seen in years. Ava allowed the smallest hint of a smile. Barely there. The woman extended a hand across the aisle. Patricia Evans, she said. I'm an attorney. If you need a witness to confirm what happened here. She reached into her bag, pulling out a business card, sliding it gently across. You have one? Ava took the card, looked at it briefly, then back at Patricia. Thank you. The words carried more weight than they needed to. Patricia nodded once, satisfied. Behind them, movement began. Flight attendants from the ground crew entered quietly, moving through the cabin with trays, bottles, glasses, the soft clink of crystal replacing the earlier tension. A man in economy laughed softly as a drink was handed tooled to him. The atmosphere shifted again, not to normal. Something else, lighter, but aware. Ava leaned back in her seat. For the first time since she boarded, her body allowed it. Her shoulders dropped, just slightly. Her eyes closed, not fully, just enough. Jason returned a few minutes later, stopping beside her seat. The executive crew is on their way, he said quietly. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Ava opened her eyes. Good. He hesitated. There's something else, he added. Ava looked at him. Go on. Social media, he said. Someone recorded the incident. Of course they did. Ava didn't react. How bad? Jason exhaled. It's spreading. A pause. And Mr. Whitmore, he added carefully, he's already posting. Ava leaned her head back slightly, looked up at the overhead panel. Thinking, not reacting. Let him, she said. Jason frowned slightly. Ma'am? Let him talk, Ava repeated. Her voice was calm again, controlled. He's not the problem anymore. Jason studied her for a second, trying to understand, then nodded. Ava closed her eyes again. The hum of the cabin had changed. Voices softer now. Glass against glass. Movement without tension. But underneath it all, something was still building. Not in the air, not in the cabin, out there. Beyond the aircraft, beyond JFK. Ava knew it, felt it. This wasn't over, not even close. Because Charles Whitmore thought he had lost a seat. He hadn't realized yet. He had just lost something far more permanent. By the time the aircraft doors finally closed again, the story was already out of control. Not inside the cabin. Out there. On screens. On phones. In hands that never hesitated to record, but rarely stayed long enough to understand. Ava sat still in seat 1A, her laptop open, the glow of the screen reflecting faintly against her face. The champagne sat untouched on the side table beside her, the bubbles long settled. Around her, the cabin carried a strange energy, lighter than before, but fragile, like something that could tip at any moment. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She could feel the shift. Jason approached quietly, lowering his voice as he leaned in. It's getting worse. Ava's fingers paused above the keyboard. How bad? Jason exhaled slowly. 2 million views in under an hour. Ava closed her eyes briefly. Not in frustration, in calculation. And the narrative? She asked. Jason hesitated. He's claiming you assaulted him. Of course he was. Ava leaned back slightly, her gaze drifting toward the window. The rain had slowed, streaks of water tracing thin lines across the glass as the airport lights blurred into gold smears. What exactly is he saying? Jason swallowed. That you forced your way into first class. That you refused to show identification. That you became aggressive when confronted. A pause. That the crew tried to de-escalate, but you escalated. Ava let the words sit, not reacting, just absorbing. And people believe him? Jason gave a small, uncomfortable shrug. Some do, some don't. It's split. He hesitated again. There's another angle. Ava turned her head slightly. Go on. He's implying you used your influence to take control of the aircraft. Ava almost smiled. Almost. He's calling it a hijacking. The word lingered. Heavy. Ridiculous. Effective. Ava closed her laptop slowly. Good. Jason blinked. I'm sorry. Good, she repeated, her voice calm. Jason stared at her, trying to understand. This is not good, he said carefully. The stock is already reacting. PR is asking for a statement. The board will panic, Ava finished. Jason nodded. Yes. Ava leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees. Let them. Jason frowned. Ma'am. With respect. He's digging his own grave. The words were quiet, but absolute. Jason fell silent. Ava turned her gaze back to him. Every lie he tells, she said, raises the stakes. A pause. Every exaggeration, another. Makes the fall harder. Jason studied her. Slowly, something shifted in his expression. Understanding. You're not going to respond, he said. Ava shook her head once. No. Jason exhaled. He's controlling the narrative right now. Ava tilted her head slightly. Only because I'm letting him. Silence. Jason straightened. What do you need from me? Ava's eyes sharpened. Everything. The word landed clean. Pull the security footage from the gate, she said. All angles. I want clear timestamps. Jason nodded, already pulling out his phone. Done. Get the cabin entry footage, she continued. The moment I boarded, The interaction with Linda. Every frame. Jason typed quickly. I'll have IT prioritize it. Ava leaned back again. And Jason? He looked up. Yes? Get the cockpit voice buffer. Jason froze. That's not standard access. Ava held his gaze. Do we have it? A beat. Yes. Then pull it. Jason nodded slowly. Understood. He stepped back, already making calls, his voice low, urgent, controlled. Ava watched him for a second, then turned her attention back to the cabin. The passengers had settled into something resembling normalcy. Drinks in hand, conversations soft. But every now and then, she caught someone glancing at her. Quick, curious, trying to reconcile what they had witnessed with what they were probably seeing online. A man across the aisle scrolled through his phone, his brow furrowed. A younger woman, 2 rows back, whispered to her partner, eyes flicking toward Ava, then away. They were watching the same story unfold, just from different angles. Ava understood something they didn't. Truth didn't move fast, but it landed hard. She reached for her phone. Dozens of notifications. Hundreds. Thousands. She didn't open them. Instead, she opened one email. From Daniel Grant, the CEO. Subject line, urgent. She tapped it. Daniel's words came fast, disjointed, controlled panic wrapped in corporate language. Ava, we need to get ahead of this. The narrative is spiraling. Media is picking it up. There are already inquiries from major outlets. If this continues, we're looking at serious reputational damage. Please advise on next steps. Should we issue a denial? Ava read it once, then again. Then she started typing. Slow, precise. No denial, no statement. Do not engage. She paused, then continued. Let him speak. Another pause. Gather all footage. Prepare for release. She stopped, looked at the screen, then added one more line. We don't correct lies, we expose them. She hit send. The phone buzzed immediately. Daniel calling. Ava declined it. Not yet. She leaned her head back again, closing her eyes. The cabin hummed softly around her. The new crew had taken over seamlessly. Efficient, quiet, attentive. There was no tension in their movements, no hesitation, just professionalism. The way it should have been from the start. A voice broke through gently. Ms. Mitchell? Ava opened her eyes. A woman stood at the edge of her suite. Mid-40s, composed, sharp eyes. Captain Harris, she said, offering a small nod. I'll be taking over the flight. Ava sat up slightly. Thank you for coming in on short notice. Harris gave a faint, almost amused smile. I've heard bits and pieces, she said. Enough to know it's been eventful. Ava studied her. What have you heard? Harris met her gaze directly. That you removed a captain mid-flight. A beat. And that you had a reason. Ava held that look for a second longer, then nodded once. We're ready for departure in 20 minutes, Harris continued. We'll make up some time in the air. She hesitated. Permission to ask something off the record? Ava gestured slightly. Go ahead. Harris lowered her voice. "You could have handled that quietly," she said. "Internally. Why do it like this?" Ava didn't answer immediately. She looked past Harris, out the window, at the wet runway, at the lights reflecting off the surface like broken gold. "Because quiet doesn't fix systems," she said finally. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "It protects them." Harris nodded slowly. "Understanding. Respect." "Understood," she said. She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth," she added, "you probably just prevented something worse down the line." Ava didn't respond, but she heard it, felt it. Harris walked away, back toward the cockpit, back to her responsibility. Ava leaned back again. The plane was ready. The crew was ready. The passengers were ready. But the real turbulence was just beginning. Because somewhere in a quiet lounge, with a camera pointed at his own face, Charles Whitmore was still talking, and the world was still listening. By the time the aircraft touched down in London, the story had already split into two completely different realities. One version lived in the sky, quiet, controlled, witnessed. The other was exploding on the ground, loud, distorted, spinning faster than truth could catch it. Ava felt the wheels hit the runway before she opened her eyes. A soft thud, then the long roar of reverse thrust pushing against momentum, dragging the aircraft back into stillness. Around her, passengers shifted, unbuckling early, reaching for bags, instinctively returning to routine. But nothing about this flight had been routine. Not anymore. Her phone lit up the moment signal returned. A flood. Messages. Alerts. Calls. She didn't react immediately. She unlocked it slowly. One notification stood above the rest. Live interview. Charles Whitmore. Ava tapped it. The video loaded. Charles sat in a lounge chair, glass in hand, tie loosened just enough to suggest distress without losing the image of control. Behind him, the soft hum of an airport lounge. Polished wood. Dim lighting. Expensive quiet. His face filled the screen. Red. Tight. Performing. "I was assaulted," he said, his voice raised just enough to sound emotional, not enough to lose credibility. Physically and verbally. By a woman who claimed to own the airline. Ava watched. Still. Expression unreadable. She refused to show identification. Charles continued. She became aggressive when the crew tried to handle the situation professionally, and instead of being removed, she somehow manipulated the system. He leaned forward, closer to the camera. "That's not how airlines work. That's not how law works. You don't just take over a commercial aircraft because you feel like it." A pause. Then the pivot. This is what happens when companies prioritize image over order. When they bow to pressure instead of protecting paying customers. Ava almost admired it. Almost. The confidence, the certainty, the complete absence of doubt. Jason appeared beside her again, his voice low. "He's been on 3 different channels already," he said. "The narrative's gaining traction." Ava didn't look away from the screen. "What's the damage?" Jason exhaled. Stock dropped 7% after hours, trending negative across multiple platforms. Hashtags are not in our favor. Ava nodded once, then closed the video. Good. Jason blinked again. The same reaction as before. You keep saying that, he said carefully. I'm not sure I follow. Ava placed her phone down. Flat, centered. Because now he's committed, she said. Jason frowned. To what? Ava looked at him. To a version of events that can't survive evidence. Silence. Jason processed that. Slowly. He's not going to back down, he said. Ava shook her head. No. A pause. He doesn't know how. The aircraft slowed, turning gently towards the gate. Outside the window, London moved into view. Grey skies, wet pavement. Ground crews already positioning, waiting. Ava's phone buzzed again. A message this time. From Marcus Hale, Head of Security. Welcome to Heathrow. 20 reporters at the gate. Legal team present. Police aware of complaint filed by Whitmore. Ava read it once, then typed a single word. Proceed. Jason glanced at her. You're walking into that? Ava picked up her bag. I'm ending it. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Passengers stood immediately, reaching for overhead bins, stepping into the aisle. Ava didn't rush. She stood when it made sense, moved when there was space. No urgency, no hesitation, just timing. Captain Harris's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London Heathrow. Please remain seated until the aircraft has come to a complete stop. The words faded into background noise, because the real moment was coming. The aircraft door opened, a rush of colder air entered, and then they boarded, not passengers, authorities. 2 British officers stepped into the cabin first. Calm, professional, controlled. Their presence shifted the energy instantly. The conversations stopped. The movement slowed. Ava stepped forward. I'm Ava Mitchell. The taller officer nodded. We've received a formal complaint, he said. We need to ask you a few questions regarding an alleged assault. Ava met his gaze. Of course. A pause. But not here. The officer frowned slightly. Ma'am, we can handle this privately. Ava shook her head once. He made it public. Her grip on her bag tightened slightly. I'll answer publicly. A beat. Unless I'm under arrest. The officer held her gaze, then shook his head. No, ma'am. Ava nodded. Then let's go. She stepped forward, out of the aircraft, into the jet bridge, and straight into chaos. The sound hit first, voices overlapping, cameras clicking, questions thrown without structure, without pause, without restraint. The moment she emerged into the terminal, the lights found her. Bright, blinding, relentless. Ava, is it true you assaulted him? Did you force your way onto the aircraft? Do you actually own the airline? Are you being charged? The questions came from every direction, none waiting for answers, none expecting them. Ava didn't stop walking. Not yet. She moved through the crowd, the officers beside her creating just enough space to keep her moving. Then, a man stepped forward. Sharp suit, clean lines, controlled aggression. A lawyer. Ms. Mitchell, he said, raising his voice above the noise. I represent Mr. Whitmore. We are filing immediate legal action for defamation, assault, and unlawful interference with a commercial flight. He held out a packet of documents. Ava didn't take them, didn't even look at them. They slipped from his hand, fell to the floor, unnoticed by everyone except him. Ava stopped, finally, turned, slowly. The crowd shifted with her, cameras adjusting, microphones pushing closer. The noise didn't stop. Until quiet. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The word cut through everything. And for a second, it worked. The front row stilled. Then the ripple followed. Ava stepped forward, into the center of it. "My name is Ava Mitchell," she said. Clear, steady, unshaken. "I am the majority owner of Skyline Airways." A murmur moved through the crowd. Confusion. Recognition. Realization. "Yesterday," she continued, "I was removed from my own aircraft." The lawyer stepped forward again. "That's not..." Ava didn't even look at him. "Because a man decided I didn't look like I belonged in first class." The words landed. Hard. "He claims I assaulted him," she said. Now she turned, just slightly, toward the lawyer. "Mr. Whitmore is lying." The crowd reacted. Immediate. Questions rising again. Voices pushing. Ava raised her hand. Not high, just enough. And again, silence fought its way back. "He's counting on something," she continued. A pause. "That I don't have proof." She reached into her bag. Slow, deliberate. Pulled out a small drive. Held it up. Camera zoomed in instantly. "This," she said, "is the full cabin footage." The lawyer's face changed. "Fast. It shows everything," Ava continued. "The interaction, the escalation, the truth. A beat. He grabbed me. Another. He lied." She stepped forward, closer to the cameras, closer to the moment. "And now," her voice dropped. Lower, colder. "He's going to prove it." The crowd erupted, but this time not against her. Against the man who wasn't even there. The shift was immediate, not gradual, not uncertain. Immediate. Phones that had been pointed at Ava just moments ago pivoted outward, away from her, toward screens, toward feeds, toward the video that was already being uploaded in real time. Reporters stepped back, fingers moving fast. Producers whispering into headsets, anchors interrupting their own live segments as something new, something undeniable, began to replace the noise. The footage spread like fire. Clear, unedited, unforgiving. Ava didn't need to watch it. She already knew what it showed. Charles Whitmore standing over her, his voice sharp, his finger pointed. The moment his hand reached out, gripping her arm. The way Linda hesitated, then chose a side. The way Captain Reynolds stepped in, not to resolve, but to remove. Truth. Simple. Brutal. Irrefutable. The lawyer beside her saw it too. Not on her screen. On the faces around him. The shift. The collapse. His posture changed first. Shoulders tightening. Chin lowering just slightly as his confidence drained in real time. "I will need to consult with my client," he said quickly, stepping back, his voice no longer carrying. Ava didn't stop him, didn't acknowledge him. He was already irrelevant. Behind him, the questions changed, not accusations, clarifications. Ms. Mitchell, can you confirm this is the full footage? Will there be legal action against Mr. Whitmore? What does this mean for Skyline Airways moving forward? Ava let them speak, then raised her hand again. The silence came faster this time. Easier. Earned. This isn't just about one man, she said. Her voice carried differently now. Not defensive, declarative. It's about a system that allowed him to believe he could act that way without consequence. She took a step forward. This ends today. No pause, no hesitation. Effective immediately, Skyline Airways is implementing a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory conduct. Not just from passengers. Her eyes moved briefly, intentionally. But from staff. The weight of that landed. Heavy. Real. If you cannot treat every person on that aircraft with the same respect, she continued, you don't work for me. A ripple moved through the crowd. Not shock. Recognition. Something larger than one incident was being addressed. Ava reached down, picking up her bag. This company moves forward, she said, with accountability, with standards, with respect. She didn't stay for applause, didn't wait for approval. She turned and walked. The crowd parted again, not forced, given. The officers stepped aside, no longer necessary. The cameras followed for a few steps, then stopped, because the story had already changed, and it was no longer chasing her. It was catching up. Outside, a black car waited, engine running, door open. Ava stepped in without looking back. The door closed, and just like that, the noise faded. Inside, it was quiet, controlled, still. She leaned back against the leather seat, closing her eyes for the first time since the aircraft touched down. Her phone buzzed once, then again, then continuously. She didn't reach for it, not immediately. For a moment, she allowed herself something rare. Silence. Then she opened her eyes, picked up the phone. The numbers were already shifting, stock recovering, climbing. Messages from executives turning from panic to relief. News headlines rewriting themselves in real time. From accusation to exposure. From scandal to statement. Ava set the phone down, looked out the window. London moved past her in blurred lines of grey and light. The city didn't care about the story. It didn't need to. But the world did. Because stories like this, they weren't rare. They just didn't always end like this. Ava understood that. Better than anyone. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. Jason. Whitmore terminated. Employer released statement. Regulatory inquiry opened. Ava read it once, then locked the screen. It wasn't satisfaction she felt, not victory. Something quieter, final. The kind of ending that doesn't celebrate. It settles. 48 hours later, Charles Whitmore walked out of a glass building in Manhattan with a cardboard box in his hands. No cameras this time, no audience, just rain, cold, unforgiving. Inside that box was everything he had left, which wasn't much. Ava never saw it, didn't need to, because consequences don't require witnesses. They just require time. 6 months later, the The cabin of a Boeing 777 felt different. Not in design, not in layout, in energy. The crew moved with confidence, not caution. Passengers were greeted the same way, regardless of what they wore. No hesitation, no judgment. Captain Harris's voice came over the intercom, steady, professional. "Ready for departure." Ava sat in seat 1A. No one questioned it. No one needed to. She looked out the window, the runway stretching ahead. Endless. Open. She didn't feel powerful. She didn't feel victorious. She felt aligned. Like something that had been out of place had finally been corrected. She took a small sip of water, set the glass down, closed her eyes, and waited. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not prove who you are. It's refuse to let the world decide it for you. If this story stayed with you, hit like, subscribe, and drop 3 words in the comments. Respect is earned.